Good morning, everyone. I'm Swati Kulkarni. I'm one of the co-founders of Elda Health, a company that focuses primarily on the last period. The time that the lady stops having her periods for 1 year, that is 12 months, we call the woman menopausal. But it's not just one episode that happens in our lives. Just like the period comes, the period doesn't just go away. It gives us some interesting moments, and I'm here not just to talk about FemTech, but to educate, I think, most of you women. I won't say all of you women, because I'm sure many of us still don't know about menopause. But I can confidently say all men, because my husband didn't know about menopause until I started building a company in this space. So we'll talk a little bit about what menopause is, how people like us and the others can support women like me and the others in this journey that's not very pleasant. And I'll conclude by talking a little bit about the FemTech opportunity here in India as well as globally. I might look very young or very old, but I am perimenopausal. I've built startups, especially in the FemTech space, for quite some time. I've entered VC rooms being pleasantly sort of welcomed, explained what periods 101 is, menopause 101 is. I've also had VCs who've understood what I was saying. I've had VCs who absolutely had no clue about what I was talking. So I'll talk a little bit about all of that in the next 25 minutes. But before we get into the what's what of menopause, I thought I'll show you guys a video of reactions that we get when we ask people what menopause is. Anyone except for you, and of course my co-founder, Dr. Ramya, can anyone please tell me what is menopause? If you can raise your hands and just talk about what menopause is. Yeah, please. That I told you just now. Sure. Can you also tell me one symptom of menopause? Anybody out here? Yes, please. Much later, yeah. There are bone issues.
She went through it for almost 5 years, and it was an ongoing process that, okay, you go through the period, but that you don't understand first. And what I found
So well said.
is a lot of women don't know themselves that menopause works this way, and what do us prevent it?
Excellent coming from a man. Thank you so much for sharing this. So I think menopause is typically endured and suffered silently by women like us. We have no idea about what's happening to us. People around us have absolutely no idea, and I think that's what few of us here are trying to build for. So the next video that I'm going to play is about what people think about menopause. Is the volume there? Can we please play the volume? Is there volume connected? No? Okay. I'll have to send this to you guys some other time. All right. I'll play the video later. Looks like this crowd does know a little bit about menopause. Now, what I really wanted to say is, it is not nothing. It is menopause, and as we proudly, talk about it, it's the time of the, the decade, the year when the lady says, can I? Should I play it from here? How do I increase the volume? They'll do it? Okay.
Sorry?
I've heard about it, but not in detail.
Not actually very clear about it.
Since it's a natural process, it should end by then.
Proper way, the proper system is not occurring.
Can you elaborate?
Hot flash? No.
No, I haven't heard about this.
No, no. It gets, but I don't think that is the reason.
So somewhere, of course, they deviate their love and affection more towards the children rather than a partner.
Yes, it gets affected.
Yes, some of my women friends.
Not in depth.
I really don't know.
there is no help basically because every woman, see, we have gone through it. तो तुमने ये face कर लिया तो कौन सी बड़ी बात होगी?
I am really not sure, but then if there is, it is going to help a lot of women, I would say.
So we had run this campaign called Let's Unpause because people don't talk about menopause. No one knows the symptoms, of menopause, and there are plenty of symptoms of menopause. My co-founder, Dr. Ameya, can give you a lecture on this, lasting at least 3 months. There are some simple symptoms which are easy to understand, and there are some complicated symptoms. I'll talk about it a little bit later on. But this is not just an emotional cause that Dr. Ameya and I started off with. There's a huge business opportunity there because 50% of us are women. But if you look at it in India, 150 million women as we speak are going through menopause. There's a $400 annual spend for 3 to 10 years in this phase. It's not like pregnancy. Puberty and pregnancy are very widely celebrated in India, but menopause is suffered silently and alone. Why? Just because we're out of our reproductive phases, why should we be ignored? It lasts up to 1/3 of our lives, and it's a huge market opportunity just in India. As we like to say, it is me, no pause, because the lady is just starting her second life, second inning, where she doesn't have to worry about young kids running around in the house, hopefully, where she can actually go freely and do whatever she wants, but she needs support. She can't be left to be by herself. It's not niche. I heard Renita and a couple of others also talking about it. It is not niche. A business potential of $600 billion, guys, tell me another market that you'd call it niche. 1 billion women globally going through menopause by 2025. $2,100 annual spends. Again, whether it's in India or across the globe, we spend 1/3 of our lives as women in this phase. But the interesting thing as Indian women is that while the global age of menopause is 51, the Indian age of menopause is 46. So we welcome menopause much earlier compared to all other women globally. Now, I can choose whether I want to conceive or not. And for everyone who feels fertility is a great market, yes, it is. And I wish and hope that everyone who wants to conceive does have the opportunity to do so. But I don't have a choice around menopause. I can't say, I don't want to have menopause today. Or maybe somebody says, I want to have menopause today. Whoever I am, if I'm a woman, I will go through menopause. My symptoms may vary from yours and yours, but I'll definitely go through menopause. 70% women suffer from hot flushes. Hot flushes, like the gentleman said, is a feeling when you suddenly feel hot out of nowhere. You're sitting in Delhi, at sub-zero temperatures or at least single-digit temperatures, and you're like, man, I'm feeling really warm. And I'm sure most of us have ridiculed our mothers for behaving a certain way. Or when she suddenly started feeling dull and lethargic, right? 30 to 40% women suffer from sleep issues. Of course, there are thyroid issues. Depression is 2.5 times more likely in menopausal transition. And like Gayatri, I think, had mentioned, you have so many other metabolic issues that actually happen, during this phase. And don't treat me like my male counterpart during that time, because I am a woman. I have hormones that probably, you haven't understood so far. Now I'm going to show you another video which talks about, we've seen about how others felt about menopause, right? Nobody had one clue about what menopause is. The feeling of couples losing intimacy during midlife. We've cracked jokes about our grandparents, not being intimate and so on, but there is a reason behind a bunch of these things, right? So I think the science behind a bunch of these things is not known. But we'll also look at the women, and these are real women, by the way, who are going through menopause. We just got them, one of our social media managers, we said, please talk to all 40, 50-year-old women that you meet, and she did this fantastic video. But just more than what they're saying, just look at their expressions. My heart goes out to them. They're pretty clueless.
Why did I enter this room? Why do I have to pee so often? Why have I put on so much of weight? Why doesn't anyone understand? Wait, there are how many symptoms? What is hormone replacement therapy? How long does this go on for? What can I do?
Sorry. Okay. So I'm sorry I couldn't take out the last slides. I'm not very creative, but this was for some promotional video that we did and I just wanted to reuse it here. So we'll talk a little bit about Menopause 101. This is a slide that Dr. Ramya typically helps with understanding, what menopause is. We've already spoken about it, right? So 12 to 14 years, there's onset of puberty. Then you're in your reproductive age, which is 14 to 40 years, where hormone levels are more or less, as they're expected to be. Then 40 to 45 years is when your sort of perimenopausal phase starts. There's a hormone roller coaster ride that begins. Then there's menopause, there's postmenopause. We spoke about the myriad of issues that happen. Every single woman goes through menopause with varied symptoms, mostly left untreated, that lead to chronic issues. So this is almost like a pre-stage to all the chronic issues that you would have as a woman if you're not treated well. There are vasomotor symptoms, somatic symptoms, urinary issues, neuropsychiatric symptoms, and so on. And there are multiple issues underneath that we can write. But I specifically want to talk about 3 or 4 symptoms, which are generally ignored. And you may want to recollect the times that your moms have gone through this, have not spoken about it. I'd also like to talk about the fact that I grew up in a household of doctors. My dad's a retired army gynecologist, and conversations about periods, PMS, were very common, to the extent I was telling one of my colleagues here that before marriage, I was forced to get my husband to go and talk to my doctor, which is my father, which is not a very pleasant experience, but he clearly told me that the man and woman are both responsible for the child that you have, right? So I grew up in a very sort of an equitable, household where gynec issues were talked about very openly, but we never spoke about menopause. My mom went through menopause, I never knew. I always thought she's feeling low because I had a love marriage, and got married very early, and I left her all to be by herself. I'd always wonder why she was, very tired at times and so on, but I never really understood what the symptoms were. So I'll talk a little bit about symptoms that have been very personally sort of connected to me. First is the lack of energy. You'll suddenly see this vivacious woman, jumpy all the time, feeling very dull, not wanting to get up in the mornings. The other one is psychological issues. You'll see them suddenly tearing up, getting angry. There are jokes now that are thrown around saying, she's menopausal or she's PMSing, but these are all real symptoms. The other less frequently spoken about symptoms are vaginal issues, vaginal dryness, pain during sex, urinary infections, urinary incontinence. You sneeze, you want to pee. You laugh, you want to pee. I mean, imagine the kind of situation that you're in. It's not something that you'd want even for your enemy, right? I've spoken to thousands of women, my counterparts in bigger organizations. These are all women who are on the board, VPs, CXOs. They've had such tough times with menopause that they've had to take a step back. And why, I would say? Companies have spent 2-3 decades to bring them up to the level that they are. You don't deserve as a corporation to, have this woman step down. You don't deserve as a child to have your mother suffer so much. So I think this is not just a cause that Elda is supporting or a couple of other companies are supporting. I think corporates, everybody together should do something about it. So this is what was about symptoms. Now I'll talk a little bit about what we are doing at Elda. We use technology a lot. So outside of Ameya and me, we also have a tech co-founder who's a BITS Pilani grad, has worked in big companies and startups. Everything that we do, we first try to see whether it's working with our women. We do it manually. We ensure that the conversations are happening. And then it's basically productized to scale. We started a year and a half ago where we said, let's spend the next 6-8 months in just giving free treatments. Our approach is very holistic. We have a gynecologist as a part of our co-founding team because we want to do whatever is real science. But we also have compassionate care managers across because we believe in real care. Unless you do both real science and real care, you're not going anywhere with menopause. So there are 3-4 pillars that we focus on. First, of course, is medical health, very scientific. Second is the lifestyle pillars. We look at nutrition. I'm proud to say that my team is all midlife women. It's not because younger people don't want to join me. I have a lot of younger product and tech folks. But I love the fact that I've been able to hire 58, 59-year-old retired school teachers who've come back and said, we're so passionate about this space, can we work with you? So we have dietitians who believe in lifestyle sustainable changes, because you can't get me on a fad diet today at 40 to basically lose the weight I was at 25. So everything that we do is sustainable. We have yoga and fitness training, and we have senior leaders who are 50, 55 who've gone through this sort of journey to help other women. We also have a lot of mental health experts. I can vouch personally that as women, we go through a lot of ups and downs, irrespective of whichever phase we are in. We try to solve the problems for ourselves, but we need scientific help there. So we've got psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, as well as health coaches who help in this journey. Now, while we did all these things, what Ameya and I decided was that we will not scale until we are able to see health outcomes. So we got women in, we took their biomarkers, we have in-home diagnostics where we get people to pick up blood work. And of course, there are other ratios such as waist to hip ratio, there is BMI, which we don't really believe in these days. How long have you been able to sleep, are you eating well, and so on. And we've consistently seen 85% improvement in biomarkers. So a lady who comes into the program first, let's say her cholesterol was at X, she's actually able to see in the 3 months program that she's seen a dip in the cholesterol, her HbA1c, her waist to hip ratio, and so on, or whatever the problem she came in with. So we're very, very scientific about our health outcomes. When we did all this, our co-founder was enjoying building some app because we knew very little about what our women wanted. And then we really went through a lot of sort of re-innovation in the app journey. We then realized that the app needs to be the compliance assistance for the woman, because it's not like every time somebody's going to pick up the phone and say, Swati, get up, you need to exercise. Or Swati, don't feel low because you're going through a tough phase. So we wanted to see how do we complement technology with human assistance. I don't believe we can build healthcare companies that are just product or app. You need to have human interventions there, but you can't have human interventions to scale. So we had to do a good mix of both these things. So quickly, lab tests at home, consultations at home, all digitally. You can chat with the experts. You're a part of a cohort of women who are going through the same problems as you. We've got a smart plan that's generated based on your biomarkers, based on your journey, your preferences, and there's compliance assistance. Now here's a slide that my co-founder Shubham gave me, so I'll just try to explain whatever I understand, and if you have any questions, I can share his number with you. We have 3 portals. There's a provider portal, there's a care manager portal, and there's a customer portal. Now, providers for us are people who basically are subject matter experts. For example, Dr. Ameya has been able to bring in a lot of menopause specialists, very senior doctors, who are at least 15, 20 years of experience. Now, these provider portals basically ease their lives. So they know when the appointment is scheduled, they're able to do digital prescriptions, they're able to look at holistic health. So even if there's a gynecologist speaking, the gynecologist is able to see what the dietitian has said, what the therapist had said. I mean, they can't see what the therapist had said, but they can at least see a particular health profile. Now then there is a patient management. See, not every time can the doctor speak to the patient, directly. So we have something called health coaches. The health coaches basically speak to the, patient to ensure that they have some checkpoints. Now this is also automated. I won't go into the details, but while 5 months ago we were looking at 1 care manager to 15 patients, today we are able to look at 1 care manager to 150 patients with the same number of touch points. Our care managers don't have to do any operational work. All they have to do is take care of our patients. Then we have a customer experience app, which is Access Elda via app, web app, as well as WhatsApp. I'm really proud of what the team has built with Dr. Ameya's help. We have something called a care library, where you as a menopausal woman can come in after your consultation with your doctor or whichever SME, and then go through a journey where you'll see content, videos, audios, content, some scales that you'd like to take, and they're all predicted based on which part of the journey you are. We've just started it for 4 or 5 programs of ours, but I'm pretty sure that as we scale, this is going to become a primary part of our offering. Yeah, I mean, tech is an enabler for Elda women's journey and beyond. This I absolutely don't understand, but I'll still try to explain it to you. Elda's full stack health tech platform. We look at role-based access. So if you have a question of, can somebody else see someone else's data? Absolutely not. Everything is basically safe, and the patient gives us consent saying, I'm okay with my data being shared with my care providers, because if we don't know what your data is or what your biomarkers are, how can Dr. Ameya or somebody else basically treat you? Now there is diagnosis and treatment, which looks at user record management, smart plan creation, teleconsultations, etc. And there's fulfillment and compliance. But again, if you have any questions on the health tech part of it, I'm happy to connect you with my co-founder. Now, I wanted to step out a little bit from the Elda ecosystem because I've been building this for the last 2.5 years, but I've also spent the last 6-7 years building FemTech companies. And I really should say that, when I heard Pooja speak, it sort of made me realize that we've come a long way in this journey. When in 2015 or 16, when I went to the first investor for a pitch, I think there were a lot of questions about women entrepreneurs, this space and so on. Honestly, I don't see that. So we are at an advantage. When we walk in, people most times don't look at us for the woman who's walking in, but for what we have to say. I've just flicked this from McKinsey and Company's report, but I thought this was very apt for this particular cohort. Guys, there's a lot of opportunity to innovate. You can just look up the McKinsey and Company report, so you'll get the details of, which is the space for us to sort of start looking at. But primarily, the entire FemTech ecosystem is split into two parts, if I may. First is services and support. Second is product and devices. If you look at maternal health, I think it's pretty, already flooded in terms of patient support, virtual care, and so on. There are still a lot of white spaces in the menstrual health service and support space that I was talking about to one of you. In my opinion, the entire part of oncology, contraception, multiple other areas in terms of infections, menopause, I think is a white space. So I'd welcome many of you to start looking at this space and build with us. We've started this journey of menopause. Ameya and I believe this is a great space, but there are plenty of auxiliary spaces where I think we can start looking at. I was telling Anu the other day that honestly, we're such a small ecosystem, the FemTech ecosystem, and the opportunity is so immense that there is no competition, there's only collaboration. So let's be with each other to see how we move on in this journey. I wanted to look at what are the opportunities to disrupt. Again, inspired by McKinsey and Company. Yes, I have friends in McKinsey, but I have no intention to copy whatever they're saying. I just thought this was very interesting. I think improving care delivery is a big opportunity for all of us. We do that at Elda. We're saying, hey, the care was never compassionate. Nobody gave it to me at my doorstep. Nothing was discreet. If I had to go to a therapist, I had to walk up and tell my mom, my husband that I need help and then go. But now with companies like Elda and many others, I can discreetly just book my appointment and sort of, So the entire concept of improving care delivery, whether it's digital or phygital, I think is very much available as an opportunity. Assisting in self-care, there are a lot of self-care apps. You look at the clues and the flows and the headspaces of the world. I think there's a lot of opportunity in FemTech to disrupt in this space. Improving diagnosis, something that Geeta is doing fantastically well. She's come a long way in terms of her 6-year journey. I remember meeting her first. And I think every time I see her, I'm like, there are more patents, of course, to her kitty. But she's just, the number of lives that she's touching by just improving diagnosis through technology is fantastic. Addressing stigmatized areas. I am honestly humbled that Ameya and I have been able to take up this space of menopause. It's a super stigmatized area. There's taboo about this. There are several other areas in the space. Sexual health. No one talks about it, right? So I think there are a couple of areas there. And then there are cultural and tailored care. Very important. While Renita told us about gender lens, I think we should also look at culture lens. Because when I talk to an Indian woman in India, when I talk to an Indian woman in the US, and I talk to an American woman, I think we're talking 3 different people. We're all menopausal, but we're talking 3 different people. So how do we actually tailor-make our programs for them? Here's my last slide, but I'd love to, sort of get questions from you all. I've been in the industry, like I said, for nearly 10 years in the FemTech space. I wanted to share, I have made many mistakes, some at my expense and some at my investors' expense. But what's been very interesting is that there were some basics that we've been taught while growing up, which we forget when we grow up, right? The first thing is to really define what is the area that you want to look at. I think you were mentioning, Sanya, that the first idea is always a crappy idea. Was it you? I would say the first idea may be great, but the way you want to approach the idea may be very crappy. And I think that's something that I've experienced at NUA earlier, at Elda, at Inksedge, every company that I worked for. The cause is really novel. You want to build for it, but the approach is definitely complicated. So please define the key women's health area to solve. Don't say women's health, quite honestly. Whoever's trying to tackle the entire women's health, it's difficult. Even if you're Einstein. I mean, It's a very big task. So pick up a niche area it's not niche, but pick up an area and focus on that, get your act right, and then there is this world to sort of, get to. Women are discerning and loyal customers, guys. I have only worked with women customers for the last 12 years. And they take some time to trust you, but the moment they do, they stick. And especially if you're looking at healthcare, it's a very sticky brand. People do not switch until they've had a very bad experience. Word of mouth is great. So build well, but pick up a specific focus area. You're talking about FemTech, so there needs to be some technology. Create programmatic workflows. Do not jump to creating technology. I think we've made this mistake. Try to do things manually. Try to do things that don't scale. That works in the beginning. And whatever you think is working, please programatize that. Wash, rinse, repeat. Do the same thing for every new feature that you want to build. Keep the solution simple and focused. At least with us, when we started looking at menopausal women, you can't give them a fancy app like a gaming solution or a cryptocurrency complication, right? It has to be very simple. Our women would say, WhatsApp jaisa hai kya? Literally, like it has to be as simple as this. Maine button press kiya and I got some results. So keep any solution simple and focused, just like you would do to a 9-year-old or a 50-year-old. I think we all want things which are very easy. This is the end of my slide, but I just want to add one point because I know that this is a FemTech space, and especially after our conversations about VC-led firms, I wanted to share some of the mistakes that I have made. I first joined Comely Media, which was an ad tech company right after my ISB several years ago, and we ran ads for almost every e-commerce company that's a big giant right now. We burned their cash because advertisement does that. You basically burn money to try to get customers, and that becomes a leaky bucket. Founders have a bias saying, hey, I want to get this money, I'll keep getting customers, and we're optimists by nature. We're like, yeah, this 100 customers, then they will come and buy later. Then they'll come and buy later. I think it's a mistake that I have learned from, in the last 10, 12 years of my working experience. Build a business on first principles. Your foundation has to be very strong. Learn to build a brand without breaking the bank. I think that's very important. Be very frugal as founders, especially in this ecosystem, in this economy. Some things that we focus on at Elda is how are our contribution margins? Are they positive? Is the CM1 at least healthy? CM2 will take some time. How is our return on ad spends? Are we getting to the trajectory of 2 to 2.5 in the next few months, few years, whatever? Do not bleed money. What is your retention rate? How many people are actually coming back? What is your lifetime value? Gone are those days when I could, sort of dance into the investor room and say, hey, this is a 1 billion, potential, it's a 600 billion potential market size and so on. The question is going to be very simple. How much are you spending? How much are you getting? Why do you think the customer is going to start suddenly sort of spending? In healthcare, of course, retention rates are a little bit more. There's a lifetime, I bought it now, I'll come back to you after 6 months, I'll come back to you after 1 year or whatever. So that you can explain if you're a logical founder, but be very careful with your math. Money that comes just goes away without realizing. I'm from a very middle class background, so I'll tell you that I have never spent money. We partied as a team, but I've never spent companies' money on partying at all, irrespective of the funds that we've raised. So as a founder, conserve the money that you have, whether it's your money or your investors' money, because at some stage, I agree with what Pooja said, your revenue should be funding your business, and that's how it becomes very interesting. The second thing that I'd like to say is I've walked into VC rooms, but not been judged for the fact that I've been a woman. So I disagree with the fact that we're not able to represent ourselves, but I do agree that at least earlier, and maybe even now, there is a bias, will this woman be able to do this by herself? And at the cost of being brutally honest, I'll also say that there may be people who'd wonder, is she going to have a baby? Is she going to get married? Is she going to be menopausal in my age, right? So I think somewhere there are these questions that as women we have to sort of face that probably our male counterparts don't have to. But guys, be proud of what, we are. I can tell you for a fact that the last 10 years, 85% of my teams have been women. And the 15% of men have made a hell of a difference in the company. They've been fantastic. But the fact that these 85% women are new mothers, the mothers of toddlers, they're menopausal women, I think has really given me confidence that the woman works really well. And as much as we're equal, I think the one thing that the woman brings onto the table is empathy, which at least I am biased. You know, I feel like my women employees have been so much more empathetic towards the business, toward their colleagues. So please be proud about the team, about who you are, and represent that, while you're pitching. Please ensure that there's at least one woman in the VC room when you're pitching, because it helps. You don't have to explain periods and menopause then. You may just have to explain menopause if the lady isn't there as yet. That's it, guys. That's my pause. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this very impactful and a wonderful presentation, ma'am. Do we have any questions? So we'll be taking 2 questions. So I think, yeah, we can definitely give the mic there.
I love how the 2 men have, please, yeah, there's another
Hi.
woman there too.
So 2 questions, yeah. The
Yes,
first
please.
one being, say I've noticed, and I had the benefit of working with a supplement company, a well-known supplement company, and we dealt with a lot of women from the age of 40, men and women, but I noticed this with women after doing it for 2 years, that there's a lack of knowledge on preventative measures, because a lot of doctors do claim that they're allopathic doctors, so they're more reactive than preactive, and which is why they're not allowed to, by law, to prescribe anything that's not medicine, right? So with Elda, are you doing anything on the preventative, and also like startups like Sanya's, where they have so much data, and geographically and age group, yeah? Is there doctors that are willing to come on board with them and help them, because they don't have the experience that you all have on how to treat it, but then they also can collect the data and help with finding preventative. And why I say this is, I dealt with a lot of women that had osteoporosis and hip replacements, and I would say knee replacements are key problems with women who go through menopause. And that's a huge money-making industry. And it's not just money-making, it's the need for them to help them. But preventatively, with supplements, we've noticed, not just supplements, but natural health. You know, is there ways that you all can help change that ecosystem?
Absolutely,
To where
yeah.
they can avoid having to have a replacement surgery?
Yeah. So I think if you're able to take care of your health during your perimenopausal years, then you can avoid a bunch of issues. I mean, avoid or at least reduce the possibility of, having an osteoporosis or ending up with, some chronic issues. So yes, we do believe in proactive health. I think the only difference is that to talk to a 20-year-old and tell her to be proactive about her health, I feel is a little bit more complex than talking to a 35-year-old and tell her to be proactive, because we're so close to that age that we're already getting some pains here and there. So we will believe you when you say, hey, be proactive about your health. So we actually tell, our women to ensure that they are doing cardio, they're doing weights, functional training, right? Eating well. And so these proactive measures are happening. I'd love to work with Sanya for sure. And the way of doing this, quite honestly, Parag. No. Darren, I'm
Parag,
sorry.
Darren.
She said Parag, so I thought somebody.
Parag's here.
Okay, this is Darren. See, the other way of doing this, and we've also been looking at what should our messaging be.
So my suggestion, is like we have November, which is for men's, cancer, right? Is it for men's cancer? November, yeah. No Shave November, right? So is there something where corporates can get involved? Because corporates get involved now in this on preventing male cancer, right? So is there a way to get corporates? Because that's where most of your women are centered, around the ages of 40 to the age of retirement, where you all can have drives explaining that you'll have these, like, increased milk. And so I did this with my mom.
No, absolutely. So I'll just sort of, answer your question there. So October is World Menopause Day. We worked with 20 corporates to do awareness workshops for them and run. So we do, for example, a holistic health program with Titan. We've done it with ACC, Siemens, IBM. You name the company and we worked with them on menopause awareness as well as their holistic programs. So yes, we do. Corporates have a huge role to play. Like she was saying, we need to have a woman board member in a listed company. So how do you do that? You have to empower these menopausal women. We are proactive. We are trying to figure out whether the messaging needs to be more like health insurance, right? You don't do this, you die, your family members suffer, right? So the woman is like that. Like I'm probably my last priority, even at home, despite being someone running menopause company. So I think we're trying to do this as well as inspiring. So yes, I hear what you're saying. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Which typically Ayurveda has been giving us. I think at Elda what we also do and what we primarily do is, rather than actually treating women after they've gotten to the stage of osteoporosis, we give them that kind of information. Like for example, typically when people get menopausal, they say, oh, now I need to take calcium. So this is the time, you should take your calcium before you reach your menopause. Yeah. So this is the kind of education we are also trying to give them, apart from solving the issues that they're already facing. And even in allopathy, now there's this whole new specialty of medicine called as lifestyle medicine, which actually is an allopathic medicine, doctors who are delving into lifestyle issues and trying to solve problems, from the base. So when you talk about maybe Ayurveda, take something like turmeric. So turmeric is typically an Ayurvedic medicine that people have been having, but turmeric also has phytoestrogens which help women. So nobody requires a license or nobody requires any qualification to actually tell the woman that take turmeric, right? So this is also what we are doing, maybe we're not Ayurvedic doctors, but we are trying to combine our age-old wisdom as Indians and our information that we have, our knowledge that we have as doctors, as allopathic doctors, into treating changing the lifestyle of the woman. So I think that is really important in today's world, considering the fast-paced life that we've been living.
So what I wanted to add here also, and that's great that you mentioned this, but I've seen this thing in Australia especially, where allopathic doctors, because they've not trained into naturopathy at the schooling age, now they've made it compulsory to have that education. Is there something like that? Because I know Elda can do this with the app, and that's great. But is there something where y'all are also, as a foundation or an...
to your question, we are holistic in nature. Okay. We may have a doctor on board, right, but we also believe, like I'm a Vipassana meditator, so for sure mindfulness is like core to what I do. So you're right, we have to do, it has to be a combination, it can't be just one against the other.
And we'll take this as the last question from Mr. Parar.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So just very curious about insurance. Have you spoken to insurance companies, and do they consider this as a pre-existing condition? And surprisingly, because everyone goes through it, how will insurance deal with this? And another thing around outcomes, have you looked at patient-reported outcome measures, which is this new thing?
Yes, we do that too.
Right, because you talked about clinical data, but like qualitatively, like do your customers
we do
talk
both.
About? What are insurance companies saying? I'm very curious about that.
So for insurance companies, we've just started conversations. They're very curious because this is a space where you're going to have more and more women showing some issues. I think we'll become a very interesting partner to them because if it's not treated, their claims are going to be really, really high. Okay. So we've just started conversations and there is a lot of interest in that space. So I'll keep you posted on what happens.
Would love to collaborate on this. Thank you.
Thank you guys. You've been a great audience.
Thank you so much. A huge round of applause.